Our show is about bringing the best practices in education to inspire, connect, and empower all educators by providing practical tips that can be used in the everyday school setting.
Hello and welcome to Coach Me If You Can, a podcast through NSSEO. We are going to speak about facilitated IEP training with Robin O'Shea and Cassie Velasquez of Key2Ed. Both are public speakers locally and nationally around all things IEP facilitation with a wealth of special education knowledge between them. As always, I'm your host, Rylee Coteus, and welcome Cassie and Robin.
Hello, Rylee.
Thank you, Rylee. Thanks for having us.
I actually, when you said our name, I actually waved, which is pretty funny because no one can see
Nobody
us.
can see us. Thank goodness no one can see us.
I can see you. And I love
sorry.
it.
Okay.
So I gave a really quick introduction. You had asked me before, you're not going to read our whole bio. I skipped that part. I'm going to let you all tell us a little bit more about yourselves. So Cassie and Robin, you guys can do rock, paper, scissors about who introduces themselves first.
All right, Rob, I'm throwing the baton to you.
Okay. Well, an elevator speech of who I am. I am I was going to say old, but I'll say veteran special educator. I've been in the industry a long time, over 25 years, and we stopped counting at 25 because it seems weird. I have taught everything just like we all do. We put on different hats, and I started my career as a classroom teacher, but I ended my career in a district as an administrator. As it relates to facilitation, Cassie and I went, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we started facilitating together in our district. We worked together in Scottsdale, Arizona, in a school district there, and loved facilitation after we went through the training. So then we became the district facilitators, as well as handful of other people, so that we could facilitate meetings that were in high conflict. But as far as personally, I have two children that are not children anymore. They're adults. One that is a lovely young man who finally made it all the way through his education in high school, hated it. Typical kid of a parent that's a teacher. He tried all the tricks and he just hated school. So he's out of school and loving life and being great. And then my other child does have a disability. So I come to you guys with experience as an educator as well as a parent with a child with a disability. And he is a hoot. He got all the good qualities from me and all of the crazy qualities from the other person.
Who shall remain nameless.
Yeah. And so the most important thing is, though, my best friend who's sitting across from me is my business partner. And we are super facilitation nerds, which will come out in this conversation. You're not
without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I will say, the only thing I can add on to that, because I can ditto everything that Robin said, but I had the privilege at the end of our time in Scottsdale when we were working to act as a neutral facilitator, which is really just handling those meetings in high conflict. But what we're going to talk about, facilitation, really is not just about resolution, but more about prevention. So we'll dive into that in a little bit as well.
And Robin, when you were saying that thing about qualities, all of the good qualities, I like to tell my son that too. I'm like, by the way, you get all the good things from mommy and you're stubborn like daddy. So there you go.
That's exactly right. And I will add on the personal level, when I dittoed everything with Robin, it is truly the same. I do also have two boys, although mine are teenagers. So we'll just leave it at that. You know where I'm at in that stage of life. So
I have no help for you there.
Yet. Very good.
Yet. I'll get there. So what are you really hoping that listeners will take away from this conversation today?
I'll start that conversation, and Cassie, you just jump in if I miss anything. So what I hope people understand about facilitation is, when I think about it, it comes in two compartments. So our training, we train how to facilitate an IEP meeting. But the beautiful thing about that, and I'm sure we'll tell you stories of it, is facilitation works everywhere and anywhere. So we often facilitate our families. And if you want to know how to do that, we can bring up some good ideas of how to do that. And in fact, we've done it so much that our kids will actually say, Mom, don't facilitate me. So there's a little trick to not really letting them know they're being facilitated. But what I want people to take away is those two concepts. One is facilitation is an organized way to run a meeting. It's not that big of a deal. It's stuff we know, but there are structural things that you can do processes and tools. And then there's like subtle, covert things that you can do, how to listen, how to be an ally, how to make sure every single solitary person opens up and gives their input, their expertise input in that conversation so that everybody leaves feeling valued and heard. But also we have a really, this is where I'm nerding out, robust, individualized program for that child. And that comes through that really good conversation. And I'm just getting excited thinking about it. So I hope they walk away with understanding that facilitation doesn't have to be complicated. It's just that.
The perfect piggyback to that is that facilitation isn't something that is now a checklist of things that you now have to do in an IEP meeting that in addition to everything else that you're expected to do. I know that for many people who are teachers back in the early 90s or before that even, they had IEPs that were 3 pages long and they were kind of a hug and a handshake and it was still a legal document. But we have now fast forward to these computerized, very sophisticated language, legal jargon documents that we still have to make sure we're in compliance, but somewhere lost in there is that child. And so IEP facilitation is about bringing it back to making sure that we're having collaborative conversations where everybody's leaving feeling valued and heard and where we're all staying really focused on the needs of the student. So I hope people take away that it isn't a checklist. It's to make your life easier. That's actually the definition of facilitation. That's what I hope they walk away with.
Rylee, you went through the training and you're a coach. What do you think about that takeaway? Isn't that so true?
Well, you saw me nodding the entire time. And well, the listeners didn't, but I was nodding and smiling the entire time because that's so true. And always bringing it back to the student of, great, now I have this amazing IEP that is going to serve this student well and serve the staff well that work with that student. And when so many people think about IEPs at first, there's that little yucky feeling of like, ugh. Yeah. An IEP, we have to do that again, or it's reeval time or whatever it is. And I will say that the districts that have been through the facilitated IEP training, that is not the initial reaction. It's okay. Oh, we're doing working memory up this way and we're really excited to try it out. Or we talked a little bit about our process versus content problems. And so we're hammering that out. So it's been so fun to see it done in our districts.
That's awesome. That's great.
It is awesome. And another key thing that happens that is a natural consequence of that is that the trust and the relationships come back into the meeting. And then we're able to really be open and transparent and have a great conversation that is focused on that child and come up with a plan that we can all support.
And it makes us all a little bit more comfortable to speak candidly. Like you said, we can say, I don't know if I can live with that. Or I was thinking about it this way. What do you think about it, to come to consensus? So I'm a huge fan. And I think I know a little bit about some things. So facilitated IEP, thumbs up from me. So you told us a little bit about what facilitated IEP is. How did this whole training come about?
Good question. Over 20 years ago, Doug and Joyce Little, who are the authors and really the authors of the content that we deliver, but also the concept of IEP facilitation. They were administrators it's called a SELPA, which is similar to a NSSEO. It's a co-op, but it's in California. So they were both administrators. Actually, Doug was a superintendent of San Francisco Public Schools, assistant superintendent, and Joyce was a SELPA director for one of the major regions in Southern California. And they were going to retire, and they just started talking about what weighs down special education. Why do we spend so much time in conflict? So they partnered with Interaction Associates as well as Harvard Negotiation Project and really started talking about how do people run a good meeting where everybody is moving through that conflict. So you can hear me say conflict a lot. Really the birth of facilitation was to resolve conflict. So they developed this curriculum, started implementing it, and realized very soon that 3/4 of it should be prevention of conflicts and not resolution. So they rehashed some things and really hit hard on that. And then that's where it started. In fact, in 2002, the United States Department of Education named it as a best practice and has been supported through the government and the Department of Education in Washington, D.C. as a best practice moving throughout the years. There's lots of people that want to use it still for ADR, which is appropriate or alternate dispute resolution. But you will hear Cassie and I say over and over, if you implement it at the base level, where you just run an organized meeting, you're not going to get to the conflict as much. So we're excited about that. But that's how it all really started. And then Doug and Joyce came to our district and we fell in love with it immediately. We started, as I said, Cassie and I put our heads together with our admin team and did a 3-year implementation plan, which is very similar to what NSSEO is doing. And we found our due process dramatically decreased. But also the neater thing was, people were calling Cassie and I and saying, I'm not coming to a meeting unless it's facilitated. And by people, I mean parents, community members, staff. I love this. It feels great. I want to do it. And it wasn't like, I'm not coming because I'm mad at you. I'm coming because we're productive.
Well, and Rylee, I want to add to that too, that we've been an NSSEO, right, since like 2018, doing this process when there's a strategic plan to roll out and look at it in a way of prevention rather than just having people come in to fix what's already broken and trust and relationships are already lost. True culture change can happen and really better family and school partnerships happen as a result.
Well, and Robin and Cassie, what a testament to the process as a whole and also both of your hard work that people, the parents, the staff members were saying, we want this and we want it this way, advocating for themselves that they want this to be done in a way that's productive and meaningful and ends up in a really great IEP.
Yeah. You bet. And where it's not driven by paperwork, which is what typically we do and have seen and personally have done throughout the years, is we get these 20-page legal documents that are computerized. And that's what drives our meetings, to make sure all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, when in reality, in the center of that somewhere is a child, somebody's precious commodity that they have. And we're talking about that child, yet we're just dotting I's and crossing T's. And as you said, Rylee, using acronyms and jargon that is only understood by somebody that's in education. And even then, sometimes we don't understand it. So really bringing it back to the core of we're talking about a child.
Right. Instead of burying them in a 150-page IEP.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, this is a little bit about you. And I was going to mention this, but I'm sure I'm just going to say it. 2 things popped into my mind when I was listening to Cassie talk. And that is that it's not driven by the paperwork. And also, we really encourage the student to be involved when appropriate, of course. And if you were to ask us, it's always appropriate at some level. But the facilitated IEP structural component, it eases that. It's something that educators, speech pathologists, teachers, administrators can go back and look at that structural agenda, structural outcomes, the norms, and really teach a child to advocate. And from a personal parent perspective, I did that with my son, Griffin. In his IEPs, he did not like to talk. He's very shy when it comes to people that are talking about him in that manner. If you work in sports, totally different story. But so we would look at that and he could start doing certain portions of that IEP because he had that structure. So it's even exciting on that level.
It's just exciting all around.
Just exciting. Yeah,
There's so many things to be excited about. Carrying on that excitement, how can the facilitated IEP training help support co-ops like ours, so member districts? So Cassie, you mentioned that 3-year plan. NSSEO is rolling out a little bit more strategically. How can the amazing work that you two do and Key2Ed do help other cooperatives like ours?
I would start by saying when we first started, we just said, hey, who wants to sign up for this awesome training? Or it actually came to us. I heard about this great thing called IEP facilitation. I'm going to sign up for it. And we had 25 people throughout our entire district come together and go to this training. And although there were the nerds like us who took and ran with it, it left a lot of people very excited, very refreshed, but then having to go back to their school teams as the Lone Ranger, so to speak, and have to say, hey, I need this new process. It's going to be great. And, you know, people change is hard. And when people don't know the reasoning behind the change, there's more pushback. So we say a 3-year rollout plan because that seems to be in our experience about how long it takes for a co-op or a SELPA or even just a district.
Even just a
again,
school
depends.
district.
You bet. Depends on the size of it all, right? There's different sizes everywhere, but 3 years to make a real culture change where all meetings are using a process with some similar tools so that the expectation when parents come in, they know what they're going to expect, and being very strategic in how those teams come to the training. So if you send teams from a school, for example, a school psychologist, maybe the assistant principal or principal, and the special education teacher as a team.
Speech path.
And a speech path, sure. And they all come together, then they can go back to their site and really start doing some planning and some thinking through, what do we want to start with? I will say that, and we say this in our training, that we never expect people to go back and put in place everything that they learned throughout our training all at once. Because again, as I mentioned, change is hard. And so trickling it out. But all in all, to say a good 3-year roll-up plan is thinking it through maybe in teams versus just having random people come and show up. And we have stakeholder training. And Robin, you want to talk about that?
That was one of the things that we decided we wanted to do, was make sure that not only the facilitators knew what was going on, but the people that sit around the table, people that weren't necessarily going to facilitate, but that were going to be interactive in the discussion. So we developed a 3-hour stakeholder training for other staff and or parents. We've had district attorneys attend. We've had community members attend. Next week, we're training the Parent Training Initiative Center in Florida. I mean, lots of different stakeholders that need to understand that process. And it provides an overview. It helps them to understand, how can you come prepared so that you can have a succinct conversation about the whole child? Come with some bulleted strengths, come with some bulleted challenges, have some proposals for goals related to those challenges. So you get the meaning, but you won't facilitate, but you'll understand when the facilitator asks for these things, you'll be prepared to engage in that discussion. So that's been something really great too. And like Cassie said, we sprayed out the opening of who comes to that first initial training. And one motto that Cassie and I have is, we'll make the mistakes for you. In our 3-year plan, we made lots of mistakes. We did a lot of facilitating, which is awesome. That wasn't a mistake. And then we did some training, not a mistake. We also only facilitated conflict. Big mistake. Little things like that. And just kind of what you guys are doing, having that stakeholder group of coaches that also understands, is really nice. One thing, I was fortunate to have my best friend, after each facilitation, I called her and I said, oh my gosh, when this happened, I really bracketed, that's a technique that we teach, my feelings about that person inside so that I could listen. But I didn't do this. How could I have handled that? And then she would say, because she wasn't there and the emotion was low for her, she would say, oh, what if you did this next time? And so you guys have set up a situation in an NSSEO where you're able to do that and really bounce those ideas off each other. So I think any district can get together a group of their people that have the time, which is non-existent nowadays, but just in case, and figure out how they can do that, as well as certainly train and just little baby ideas of what do we want to start with. Maybe it's just how to describe our roles, or maybe we're going to start with just using an agenda. By no means is that full facilitation, but it's a step.
One of the things about stakeholders is that, to point out about facilitators and stakeholders, is that oftentimes when people hear, let's have a facilitated meeting, their immediate mind goes to, good, we're going to have somebody come in and run the show. And in the sense, facilitation is sort of running the organized meeting, but it isn't being the sage on the stage, the knower of all things. What we're after is that all stakeholders are coming prepared so that the facilitator can just guide a conversation that's collaborative. They're not doing the talking. They're not doing the solving. They're not doing that. They're getting everyone else involved. All team members are feeling valued. They're collaborating. They're leaving feeling heard. So the facilitator isn't there to be that person. And oftentimes that's what's thought of. So the stakeholders being trained are equally as important as getting facilitators trained.
So you could consider me a facilitator of this conversation.
That's correct, Rylee.
Giving everyone equal airtime. Maybe I'm paraphrasing a little bit, all of that good stuff.
Exactly right.
Okay, you've just joined total and highly sought after facilitation nerd status.
Yep.
I try to join as many nerd statuses as I can. That is my life goal is
I love it.
How can I be a nerd in so many different ways? Because as you were talking too, especially this is throwing it back a little bit about the stages where you can intervene. As a behavior analyst, I am talking prevention all the time. Hey, I want to coach through what we're going to do before that problem behavior even happens. So that's where my nerd brain goes to. And something that you said, really both of you, about training the stakeholders so that everybody has that expectation and feels more comfortable even going in, because nobody likes to go into a meeting and just go, anyone know what we're here for? Or what are we covering? Or
why are we meeting again?
Right. Didn't we do this last year? Why are we here again? And I love that it's prepping everyone for success, not prepping everyone so that everyone has the right answers, air quotes, but prepping everyone to just be in this space that is collaborative and interactive for all.
That's right.
Exactly.
Your enthusiasm is very evident about where you all want to take Key2 Ed and where it has already come from. What is your highest hope for your organization? What do you want to see it grow into?
My first thought that jumped into my head right when you asked that is we want to, on one hand, as business owners, grow a company. But more importantly than growing the company from a business standpoint, it's almost like spreading the wealth of love and collaboration across the country where all families and schools are communicating and collaborating to come up with the best plan for their child, because ultimately we all want the same things for that child. And that has gotten lost in the shuffle over the years. So we just want to continue to grow and expand, and having our virtual training now online due to the pandemic has really helped us to even reach more people. And because we're not having to spend time traveling, yet the content in which we're providing that has not changed at all. And in fact is, people that have gone through it and gone through the face-to-face have said it's just equally awesome. And we're able to add in what we do for virtual IEPs now, because that's a thing that we're facing that I just don't think is going to go away. So we just want to continue to grow and spread. Yeah.
And maybe not even go away in a bad way. It's a great way. It's another venue that people can attend and learn. Our virtual training is a mix of self-study that they do it on their own through video review of Cassie and myself taping every single section. So that by Friday, you got a lot of kasabin, which is what we like to call each other.
Kasab. I
love
Kasabin. But then we meet, and this, of course, but we meet each day in a live Zoom session where we practice facilitating an online IEP meeting. So you get that same practice, but we also debrief kind of what we're doing today too, and just applying the concepts to real life. So it's been really fun. And you also said, where do you want our company to go? And Cassie's words always inspire me. And another thing that popped into my head was that one thing that we get a lot of feedback on is teachers who are burned out and exhausted and overwhelmed go through the training, both face-to-face and online, and come to us and say, I feel refreshed. I feel like I remember why I got into this. And I'm getting goosebumps right now because these are our peeps, and these are so important. And then we've recently been doing a lot of work with families. And one family, I'm going to tell Cassie's story. I wasn't in this training, but Cassie did a training or a consortium with a bunch of families in a very large district. And the families over and over said, we feel like before this, the meeting was being done to us. And now we feel like we are all conducting the meeting about my child. And to me, that's what we want. We want families and special education staff as a whole team, all of those is the team, to feel inspired again and refreshed and hopeful, because we've gone the other way and it's not good.
The struggle is real, as a colleague friend of ours always says. And I think that being that renewed, refreshed, it helps less burnout as well. I mean, teachers will come back to us and say, oh my gosh, I was going to leave, but now I feel like I can handle this again. So
and parents
exciting.
Get burned out too. And they're like, I'm just so tired of the team. They're not listening to me. And that's their perception. By no means do we think that that's happening, but it's perception's reality. And so for them to be able to actually say that was different. I feel okay about this. This year is going to be good. Or even if this year is difficult, Rylee, my behavior analyst, even if it's going to be difficult, we're all a part of it. So that's what we hope our company does. We love it. That's what we hope we're going to bring to what did you say, Rylee? We're changing the world one little piece at a time.
One little piece at a time.
That's ridiculous.
We're doing it.
Anyway,
we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Well, and there were so many great things that both of you brought up. I love how that family said that now they don't feel like it's happening to them, that it's happening with them. There is something that I talk about in so many of the trainings that I do as it relates to students with disabilities, is that adults, neurotypical, and I use air quotes for neurotypical as well, neurotypical adults make thousands upon thousands of decisions in their day. And when you get down to it, kids still make a lot of decisions in their day, but not quite as well. Kids with disabilities make so few decisions about their day unless the adults around them are giving them choices. And so I'm just drawing this parallel between when you're not given choices or input in something, you do feel like things are just happening to you, instead of I'm doing this as a bigger part of something, or I have some control over what's happening. We definitely walked away from facilitated IEP going, oh, I can't wait to talk about this with my team, or which one are you going to use next? And we talked about Anger Mountain a lot. We were like, and I am feeling like I am on Anger Mountain right now.
I am creeping up that mountain right now.
Somebody
I'm almost to the top.
Better help me get off this mountain.
Somebody interrupt my Anger Mountain so I can come back down. Yeah, exactly.
My main takeaway, I know that both of you have described what you hope that listeners will take away from this. My main takeaway is just that facilitated IEP is a collaborative process. It is not something that happens to people. It is something that people help to create, and that we always bring it back to the kids. Our final question, we ask everybody on our show this: what is something that empowers, inspires, or connects you? Robin, you introduced yourself first, so we're going to throw it to Cassie first.
First thing that comes to mind is people, relationships. The relationships that I have with my friends and my family and my colleagues is what continues to drive me. I mean, especially being able to work and live my life with my best friend, Robin, and we get to do this work across the country is so inspiring. I would say I'm grateful that I get to witness the increased collaboration that happens between families and students with challenges and the school communities when we're out and about doing this work. And I feel inspired when I'm able to meet deadlines and meet goals. And when I experience growth, that inspires me. So I'm really excited that both Robin and I love learning new things, and we get to continue to grow both personally and professionally.
I would say ditto. And that's because we speak the same language. We always say I'm the other side of her brain, and she has a really good process brain. I have a really good relationship brain.
Are we ready for some rapid fire questions? Robin,
oh boy.
This one's for you. What is something new you have recently learned?
This is businessy, but we went through this huge brain-blowing aha moment on Monday. Both Cassie and I did. Yeah. We practice what we preach, period. We do it all the time. And if we're not, we remind ourselves to practice what we preach. So Cassie and I were facilitating a staff consultant meeting. We were like, okay, this is great. We're going to see we're celebrating, and then we're going to do the delta. What things do we need to change within our power to change if we can, to make your training experiences better for you? So we were so excited to get together. That's all we did to prepare for the meeting. Well, the meeting was great. We got so much great information, but the reality was it wasn't an organized, guided discussion. Cassie facilitated verbally and I did the group charting and then co-facilitated. So at the end of that meeting, we had to have a 2-parter, which is fine because there was a lot of great information, but we believe in keeping time for people. So on the second meeting, Cassie and I took some time to set up for success, which is hysterical because it's what we preach all the time.
Prevention, Robin.
Prevention. And you know what I'll say? The main thing that we realized that didn't work in that first meeting, or what wasn't clear, was we didn't even have a clear purpose. We knew we wanted to gather information, but really, what was the end goal? What was the purpose? And then what were our outcomes? And so we were able to sit back and kind of giggle about that. And then second meeting, we came up very clear with all of that. And man, it went way better. Yeah. There you go. Proof is in the pudding.
We just laughed about it, but we were like, yeah, I mean, I say facilitation works everywhere, but you have to do the work. You've got to do the work to do it. And it really did benefit us. So that was my.
Yep.
I love that. Something you learned. Okay, Cassie, who was your favorite teacher or educator growing up and why?
The first person that comes to my mind is my 7th grade social studies teacher, Mr. Liebert. Now, it's funny because if you ever are in any sort of trivia fun with me, I am terrible at social studies questions. So it's ironic that he is my favorite teacher, or that's who comes to my mind. But he was my favorite teacher because although I think he was a very strict, I remember getting the finger point in my face and almost tapping I remember him being very strict like that because of course I was a little naughty, of course. But he was very honest and transparent, and you always knew where you stood with him. And he was always happy to see you and made you feel very valued when you walked into a room. So I guess to me, that's why he stands out to me.
So are you trying to say, Cassie, that sometimes it's not all about the process or the content that you're learning, but about the relationships that you're building there?
Do you know, it's so funny now going back to that first question about what inspires me, and that is the relationship piece that I have. And so there it goes. It's all tied together.
Robin, what book are you currently reading?
I'm reading a lot of technical stuff right now. I'm in the middle of my PhD, so that's no fun. Cassie and I are reading together a book on teams. What develops good teams? We, through the Harvard Negotiation Project, if you guys have ever gone to their website, they have lots of great resources. So we bought that book on teams. I do love one thing that's kind of relevant to the podcast life. I love the podcast Smart List. It is it's not G-rated. So for those of us who don't want to hear cussing and whatnot, don't go on there. But it is so good. And it makes me literally laugh out loud every single day. And I need that. And so sometimes Cassie and I will be on the treadmill back in the day when we used to actually get together and travel, and we would both be listening to it and laughing. It's just great. So anyway,
good. That's good.
I'm not reading it, but I do listen to that as much as I can.
That counts. Yeah. All right. I'm checking that out. I was looking over at Stacy, our executive producer / fearless leader. And I was like, have you heard of that one? She's like, no. I'm like, we need to put it on our list.
Oh, you will love it. You
guys are going to laugh.
You will love it. Yeah.
It's awesome.
It won't get me on a treadmill though. I will tell you that much. That's not going to happen.
Point.
All right, Cassie.
Clear outcomes, people. Clear outcomes.
No treadmill. That is very clear. Cassie, best advice you have for an educator?
I had the privilege of having a lot of student teachers when I was in the classroom. And I think you'd have to ask them, of course. They might say something completely different, right? But I think that the best advice that I could give an educator truly is that the relationship, here we go again, Rylee, it's the relationships. Make sure that they really know their students on a human level, and to tell them that what defines a child is not necessarily their academic success or lack thereof. It's really getting to know them and letting them get to know you and see you fail and see how you persevere from making mistakes, and to let them know that it's okay. It's okay. We all make mistakes. The advice I would give them today. And I guess hang in there. Because, man, it's a tough world out there right now.
And
how about that? Hang in there.
Listening to Cassie say that, I'm going to tattle on her. That's exactly how she parents. And she has 2 beautiful, smart, well-adjusted boys. And I'm not going to let them listen to this. Yeah, don't let them know. But
No.
She lets them see her make mistakes, and she talks about it, and she hangs in there. I don't know. It's just like when you were describing that, Cass, I was like, that's exactly how you parent too. So it's good tip for educators as well as parents.
It is. Well, and I have to throw in that when you asked Robin about her book, I'm reading 7 Habits of a Successful Teenager or something along those lines with my teenager. And trust me, I don't think he's too thrilled about it. I think I'm reading it well, and he's like next to me. And then I ask a question, he jumps up.
And he's like, sorry,
sorry, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm just telling you all the habits you should get so that you learn from all my mistakes. I'm just trying to help you. Don't do what I did.
Do what I say, not as I do, right?
Oh, thank you. That is exactly right. Now, that's actually a motto in our house. Do what I say, not what I do.
It's on a big plaque or above your kitchen table.
Totally. One of the things I say to my kids every day before they walk out the door is be a good friend, use your powers for good, and make good choices. So every day before they leave, that's what they get when they walk out the door. And they're now, as teenagers, they're like, oh my God, Mom.
Fine, Mom.
But bye. Got it.
All right, Cassie and Robin, how can we find you?
It's a good question. You can go to our website, which is www.key2ed.com. And that's key is KEY, the number 2, ED as in education.com. And you can learn all about our company. And there's actually a resource page where there's some video on there. There's some video of different things for parents, for staff, for whomever wants to go on there. And of course, you can always reach Cassie and I, and you have our emails. You can send our emails out there or post them somewhere. You can email us independently.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here. I had so much fun.
So much fun. Thank you.
Oh.
We look forward to working with you so much more too.
Yeah, by the way, there's a training coming up with you guys. So we'll see you. 2 trainings coming up. So we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening. Join us in 2 weeks for another episode of Coach Me If You Can.